I think actually really focusing on brand is becoming more and more important, and I think it's only going to become more important as we move forward, particularly with all the disruption that we're seeing in SEO at the moment with the integration of AI and SGE, etc. Nobody really knows how this is really going to play out. And for me, I think it's in these times of real flux, go back to the basics and go back to what's really important. And I think if you can focus on what's really important, then you're always going to be in a really strong position, no matter what.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Shelley Walsh with us. Shelley is a digital consultant with over 20 years of creative marketing and tech experience. In the last 14 years, she's been published extensively across industry publications. She's spoken at many events online and offline. She works for Search Engine Journal as their SEO content strategist and as an SEO content consultant for brands in the UK and the US to help them achieve measurable results. Shelley also produces The Pioneers, a series of interviews with influential people about SEO and the early days of the industry. Shelley, it's so great to have you on the show.
Hi, Stephan. It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's first of all talk about how you ended up creating this Pioneers podcast series about the early pioneers in the SEO industry. What inspired you to come up with this?
Yeah, it's really funny being on this side of the table, Stephan, for once. I'm obviously used to be the one in the driving seat asking the questions, so this is quite a different experience for me. SEO Pioneers, interestingly, the concept came, it was about 2.5 years ago, and it was a combination of different inspirations that led me to the point. First of all, I love biographies. I love people's stories. I think everybody has a really interesting story to tell. And I think as I've become older, I've become really interested in history. I've tried lots of different types of content over the years. I'm a big believer in just try things, just keep throwing things at the wall till you find something that really works for you. And I was looking for a really good side project, something really interesting for me to work on. And looking at all these kind of different parts of inspiration that were brought me to this point, I suddenly thought, well, nobody's really looked back at the history. And for me, I thought, to look back on what came before, you have to do that before you can move forward. So I thought it could be really interesting to go right back to the beginning of the industry. I mean, it feels like we're 25 years in now and the industry is starting to mature. And it felt like we had enough longevity where we could look back at the original, the origin, the early days, to really see what people were working on then, with a view to looking forward, especially at the moment with everything changing so rapidly. I feel like often, when things are changing so much, it's really good to go back to fundamentals and basics and look to what happened before to kind of keep a level of stability. So originally, interestingly, The Pioneers was going to be a series of long form articles. I like writing. And I thought it'd be really interesting to sort of combine doing some interesting long form articles on specific industry influence and leaders who were at the beginning of the industry to really get their personal story. So I was really looking for that combination of their personal story combined, like the human element combined with SEO. And the videos were actually just going to be my research. And after sort of filming the first one, I realized actually I really like videos and I never got around to writing a long form article. And I just kind of fell into it and it evolved. And I quickly realized that this was working really well as a medium, and that the people, the pioneers that I was speaking to, I mean, the very first one was Amon Jones. Obviously, he really was. Right, he was, mentored a lot of industry greats himself. And then there was Michael Bonfils, and I was fortunate to speak to Bill Slawski. I think I've actually got the last interview with him just before he sadly passed, his untimely passing. Greg Boza, Dave Naylor. I've spoken to a lot of really interesting people. I think also a really big motivation as to why I wanted to start it as well was I'm a really big believer in surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than yourself. I think probably like a lot of people, I suffer from kind of imposter syndrome. I still have that feeling like, I've been in this industry a long time, as if the more you know you don't know. And I like to keep surrounding myself by people who are really smart and, see what they have to say and learn from them. So learning's a big passion. And so it was combining a lot of elements together, it was kind of like a personal passion that has seems to have really resonated with the industry. It's interesting that I don't think there's anybody I've come across in our industry that hasn't seen one of the pioneers so far. I'm always still quite surprised how many people have actually been watching it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. It's funny when you were talking about how you're planning to do long form articles or just have this be in a textual format. That reminded me of how I started my first podcast, which was Get Yourself Optimized. Actually, the original name was The Optimized Geek. I started it in 2015 to originally as interviews for creating textual like inclusion in a book that I was working on. So I was going to throw away the interviews, and I realized like, this is gold. I should be using this. I should be posting this as audio content. So it was just, back then it was really more of an audio format. Now, almost always you're going to want to post your videos as well as your podcast. But back then I did audio only. And then a few years into it, I realized that I need to be doing videos as well, not just audio. And then, the rest is history. So I started the Get Yourself Optimized podcast, The Optimized Geek, first, to augment my book with some great case studies and quotes and things like that from experts. And then a few months into that, I realized like I should be doing a marketing show as well, and that's where we're talking now on Marketing Speak. So yeah, text is great, but there's something special about an AV format in terms of capturing people's tone and their enthusiasm and their insights and their prognostications.
Yeah, it's funny, really. I mean, I'm just experimenting with video now, and I literally never thought I would do video, and I was always, written content, etc. And years and years ago, I actually did a video strand in one of my communication degree, and I thought I'm never going to do this again. But I'm just really enjoying it as a medium, and I think more than anything, I just really enjoy talking to people because people have fascinating, interesting stories. I'm actually quite a shy person myself and don't really like putting myself in the spotlight, but I just love finding out about other people and how they came to where they are. And, I just learning. It's that combination of learning and conversations, and also my passion and love for the industry and everything tech geek. It just all came together in that perfect mashup, really. Yeah. I'm sure you get it yourself, right? You really enjoy this. You enjoy what you're doing.
I do. And I feel like I'm revealing light in the world by doing it, right? So even if it's about marketing, there's some sort of nugget there that will help people to be more connected and more in service, do something bigger and better, and help others. So yeah, I know that this is helping people. The people it's meant to help, it will help.
But do you get? I mean, what do you not get a lot out of it yourself, though? I mean,
Oh,
I
of
found
course,
that
yeah, I
yeah,
do.
every
I'm sure that
single.
you've got questions and ideas and things that you want to ask, bounce off of experts and different topics that in SEO, and you get the opportunity to do that in the interview format.
Yeah, it's, every single, what's been really fascinating is every single person that I've spoken to. I mean, every single one has a different approach to SEO, and that's what makes it so fascinating. In our industry, it's amazing that there are so many approaches that you can take. And everybody brings something different to the table. I almost thought, oh, maybe all the interviews are just going to end up the same. People are going to tell the same story, but everybody has a completely different, their experience and perception is totally different from the next person. But what I have found is that I've learned a real gem, an absolute nugget from every single person I've spoken to. And, those are all in the videos. There is so much in there for other people to learn as well. If they watch, there's something in every single one. So a real gem, some really surprising stories as well.
Yep.
Some very funny stories if you listen to Dave Naylor.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious. So yeah, I remember our early kind of wild experiences being at the Googleplex, playing Werewolf with Matt Cutts and a bunch of SEOs, many of which he considered to be black hat, and having a deck that back then it was called SEO Moz had created, and I was in that deck. It's like all sorts of crazy things that, yeah, lots of stories, lots of great stories. The one thing that I think you'll enjoy hearing relating to not just history of SEO, but history in general. It's a quote from Mark Twain. History doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes.
Oh, I like that. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll learn stuff from history, not because we're going to repeat it, but because we're going to learn some lessons that, would rhyme if we didn't change our tack, so there are things that, mistakes that people made in the early SEO industry days in terms of their interfacing with Google or with their trying to collaborate with other SEO people or whatever. It's just there are lots of lessons there that if you take the lesson on, you don't have to repeat it or get the lesson in a slightly different way.
I think what really has come across as well is back then it was such a new industry. There was there was no guidebook. There was no learning for people. It was everybody came from a different industry, so everybody actually started out with an interesting story because everybody else pretty much had a career before they became an SEO. So there's quite a diverse range of backgrounds, but it was really learning, self-learning and feeling your way. So, and it was very community-led. There were forums, people connecting. People had to connect to learn, and there was a lot of collaboration. I think our industry is so unique. It's one of the things that I love about it so much is the collaboration that has brought everybody together, and we've managed to sustain that incredibly. How we've managed to say, even though we're all in competition with each other to some degree, we've managed to be very altruistic, and everybody gives away a lot of information.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Amazing.
I love this industry.
Yeah, I remember the early days of forums like Webmaster World, Digital Point, et cetera, that really helped shape the industry. There was a lot of collaboration, a lot of helpfulness out there. People were not getting paid to share their insights or help people figure out a problem and get around it. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of altruism still out there in the industry, even if Webmaster World is not really a thing anymore for most people. It's the energy of it that still survives.
Yeah, I really don't think that I don't think the industry would have evolved how it has without the forums. And I think what's interesting is they've probably now moved over to social media And there's a lot of closed groups as well. But, there's still a lot of people out there giving away really good, they invest a lot of time giving information. But if you look back at it, I suppose, really, it's the ultimate content marketing. For example, John Mueller, he used to be incredibly active in the forums and invested a lot of time giving. And that was how Google contacted him to go and be their, I think, is his title search liaison? I was going to say search liaison, but I don't think he's search liaison.
Yeah.
He is search liaison, yeah. So that's, that worked for him. And it's almost like the ultimate content marketing, putting your knowledge out there. The more you give away, I guess a lot of people have that belief of, oh, don't tell everybody your ideas. Don't tell people what you're doing. But, the more you give away, I think the more it comes back to you. I was always a big fan. I don't know if you remember Zig Ziglar, but Zig Ziglar used to say, if you help enough other people, you'll get to get what you want, helping enough other people, and you will get what you want.
Yep.
And I think that is a really great philosophy. Yeah. I think it's a great philosophy to have.
Yeah. A corollary to that is if you want to become a millionaire, help a million people. If you want to become a billionaire, help a billion people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it as business karma. What goes around comes around. If you want to make a real impact in the world and through your business and be successful in the process, just have that intention of revealing light in the world, being helpful and giving without the need to receive something back, because that's true giving. It's not horse trading.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I know from doing Pioneers how much time it takes to do it. And I'm sure with you doing this show and other people who create shows and produce great content, it's a massive time investment. And, but it's a good thing. I approach everything with integrity. For me, how I run my business, how I conduct myself in every manner. One of my favorite sayings is, it's what matters is what you do when nobody's watching. And that's pretty much how I live my life, in terms of I always try to be 100% professional, 100% integrity, and just give as much. I give way too much to my clients. I'm perhaps not the best businesswoman in the world. But yeah, I give a lot, and I think that speaks back because the people I work with, I tend to work with them for a long time. They love working with me. I love working with them. So that kind of speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, that's great. Now, do you have any favorite communities in the internet marketing world that are very vibrant and alive these days? I just name drop a couple of the early ones that aren't really that active anymore, Webmaster World and Digital Point forums. But for me, for example, on Facebook, I really get a lot of value out of a couple of groups. One's called Never Held Back, NHB, and the other one is Internet Marketing Super Friends. And they're both very large, vibrant communities with, I think, thousands of people in each group, and very active posts happening every day. Lots of really valuable insights and resources are shared. If you're looking for, a direct response copywriter, it'd be one of the first places to go to if you didn't already have somebody in your kind of virtual Rolodex. You just go on to those two groups in Facebook and then do a search within the groups for copywriter or direct response and find some amazing gems in there. So what are your favorites?
Yeah, I'm just actually really quickly skimming through my Facebook groups because I'm involved in so many, but Dumb SEO Questions was a really great group. And unfortunately, because Amon Jones was really active in this, and Amon still had that forum mentality where he would just write out essays in responses. And he still gives away so much and invests so much of his time in just teaching others. but unfortunately he got banned on, banned. There was a problem with the group and a few of the admins were removed. So he's no longer in it, sadly, but that used to be a really great group. I'm also find that these days, I think a lot of I'm involved in quite a few groups in WhatsApp. And I think the more the closed groups are really where things are going on now. I think people have moved away. Maybe it's just more of a protection of being able to speak in a small group, not necessarily speaking in a wide group, so you can speak more openly and speaking with a more closed circle. I'm in a few private groups, and I think also with events as well. I've always gone to Brighton SEO and found Brighton SEO one of the best conferences, and I've been going there since, oh gosh, I don't know, 14 years, a long time ago. And interestingly enough, actually, one of the very first Brightons I went to, I did like an limited edition infographic poster for them, which I've still got a copy of on my wall.
By the way, Kelvin, the founder of Brighton SEO, was a guest on this podcast. That was a great interview. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking through actually. Yeah, Kevin is, he's incredible. He's amazing energy, a fantastic energy. Yep. I don't know how he does it. It's impressive organising that event. So what he's taken it from just a small room above a pub into, a multinational conference now. It's incredible. But yeah, I think the small groups and smaller events, I've been going to a few smaller meetups. I went to an amazing one last year, which was a really small, it was actually semantic search in London, and it ended up being several engineers from Google turned up, and it had been kept very quiet. And, there was only about 15 of us in the room. Dixon Jones was there. Of course, Dixon is always at every event. If you know Dixon.
Yeah,
I think for a living. Yeah. Dixon basically attends events for a living. That is his job. And it was, there was about 15 of us, and it was a very high level of conversation. It was great I talked to some of the Google engineers, and it was very insightful and very interesting. I think those small closed events moving forward are kind of more where it's at, where more interesting things are happening, taking it down to smaller spaces again. And, groups online and offline. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. And I'm curious if in these closed groups you hear a lot of black hat conversation, like black hat SEO tactics and things like that, because I know that was back in the day was meant to be shared privately and not Google engineers kind of spying on what they were up to. Although Black Hat World was kind of public, just everybody had handles. I was never Black Hat. I always did the White Hat SEO, but back in the day, Black Hat World was very popular as a forum.
I'm fascinated by Black Hat, and the reason it fascinates me so much is I think the most creative people in the world are Black Hats, because some of the schemes that they come up with. I remember when I spoke to Greg Boza, and he told me where he basically created it was almost like a Wikipedia PBN, and just the creativity. How do you even come up with that idea? I remember Michael Bonfisi was telling me about how he was building directories, and he had all these different personas to actually build out his own community and forum. Just these incredible ideas and the creativity that goes into it. But I very rarely now come across people. I mean, I'm not in those communities. I know a few people who are Black Hat. I won't name any names, but for me, I am all about creating really great quality content. That's what I believe in. It's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about distribution of information. I love content. I love good content. I don't believe in filling this amazing entity that we have, which is the internet, with, spam rubbish. I believe in trying to give something good to the world, like you say, bring the light. Black Hat is still still working and they're in some certain industries, they are doing very well. And it is, from what I believe and the conversations I have, incredibly lucrative. I mean, I know that at the end of the day, people aren't particularly honest with their figures, but from what I believe, there are some guys making incredible amounts of money, especially in sort of gambling affiliate spaces, still to this day. But the circles that I move in are very much doing things in the right way. I think, it's more and more conversations I have now are about brand. I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with people as well. I meet up with people a lot. I put a lot of investment into my network, and, I talk to a lot of super smart. One of my favorite people to speak to is Arno Hellmans. Shout out to Arno. He is one of he's on another level, and I try to meet up with him on a regular basis. He's a great guy, and we have some great conversations, but I'm always sworn to secrecy. Anything that is shared, it is just between ourselves. But no, I don't actually come across black hat. I mean, obviously I have the conversations and we still share things that are not shared publicly, but it's not the same. They're not scams, tricks, or works around. I think most conversations now are based around one thing only, and that is putting the user front and center, because, that's what everything is built around. And, there's a lot of talk about semantic and entities. And really it's more about focus on user than anything else. And actually, I think that's what all of SEO hangs off that. And that's really everything. Why do something? What is the point in trying to drive traffic to a site if, once it gets there, it's irrelevant traffic, or there's no aim? Obviously, okay, now I realize the stupidity of what I just said, because if you are a black hat, the whole idea is just to get traffic to a site, and that's it. That's where it ends. But for the rest of us who are actually working in marketing, then we have a completely different perspective and objective, which is to get qualified people and to build community as well. To build it's all about building an audience. So yeah, black hat doesn't. I do like to hear the stories. I love to try and find out what they're doing, but for me, it's I don't bring in black hat to what I do at all.
Yeah. Well, one of the best places apparently for the black hat stories, the really good ones, is SEO Oktoberfest. So that's
is that
that's
right?
an event every year that I never went to. I just never felt called to go. I don't like beer. I don't like brats and meat and all that. So I had no interest in Oktoberfest, generally speaking. And SEO Oktoberfest was like tons of beer and meat, as well as a lot of behind closed doors discussions on SEO and black hat stuff and kind of secret tactics and things like that. I just didn't. Yeah.
That's interesting. I know a lot of people who go to SEO Oktoberfest, and I've never been, as you say. I don't drink, so for me, beer it's just not my idea of fun. No. But I think also there's from what I believe, the real black hat one at the moment is probably the Chiang Mai, the conference. Chiang Mai is and also I think Matt's. I also think, I don't think it's not black hat in orientation, but I think to Take It Offline, which Jerry White organises, I've not actually managed to make it to one yet, and I was supposed to go to one last year in Sofia, which I regret missing. But again, I think these are more the kind of, it's going back to these almost closed and trying to cultivate this conference where it is all about chat and sharing really high level ideas. I think originally that's what Ungagged was supposed to be about, wasn't it? About, what's happens in the conference stays in the conference. But I think the Take It Offlines are probably really the ones to watch for some really good cutting edge.
Yep.
Not black hat. Jerry White is not a black hat at all. It's not a black hat event. But in terms of high level, I think that's certainly one to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I remember even with the more traditional SEO conferences, there were some kind of behind closed doors type sessions that were not supposed to be blogged about, and then ended up getting blogged about. Anyways, I pitched to Danny Sullivan for his very first SMX Advanced conference to have a session on sharing your best secrets, and it was called Give It Up. And I was on the panel, and I shared my super secret tactics that I had figured out. And actually, I ended up getting a book deal out of that because Rand Fishkin was also on the panel. And at the next conference a month later at SES Toronto, he came up to me in the speaker lounge and gave me a hug. And just, I hardly had ever spoken to him before. And, we had a great conversation and decided to do a book together at in
Of course, yeah.
section. And then in that same session, we called Danny Sullivan, who happened to be, no coincidences. There are no coincidences. He happened to be at Foo Camp, Friends of O'Reilly conference at that exact moment. And he's like, well, I'm sitting next to one of the acquisitions editors here at O'Reilly, and I'm going to ask if they'd be interested in an SEO book, and I'll be right back. And by the end of the conversation with Rand, we had a book deal verbally. It was like all together in just one conversation, and it all happened because I was altruistic and uncensored in my sharing with my seeming competitors in the audience. And I got people to raise their hand if they knew the technique that I was sharing, and I shared like 7 of them, and almost nobody raised their hands. And there was one that I knew nobody would know, and like the Aaron Wall SEO book, he raised his hand, and I'm like, you're fibbing. I was thinking to myself. I'm all about giving and not trying to have an agenda or to horse trade, and then the universe will reward you, but don't do it for the rewards. Do it because that's who you are.
It's an approach that I 100% believe in. What you're saying, give away, and it's interesting, because there's that trade-off where that if you put a really good tactic out there and it gets into the open space, that it's going to get spammed to death, it's going to get leveraged, and eventually, it's not going to work anymore. As we know, a big part of what we do is trying to bring, new approaches that Google isn't going to shut down. I mean, obviously that's more looking at, I guess, more older black hat stuff now. Where we've moved to now, it's more classic marketing, but there is still that trade-off, isn't there, of if I put this out into the open space, is it going to ruin it for the work that I do? But I think the belief I've also take is, and I'm trying to remember where this came from, it's years old advice, and I think it actually goes back to when I was at art college, is don't hoard your ideas. Don't hold on to them. Don't put the arm around your paper, when you're writing your essay at your desk. It's just give it away. And by doing that, the very process of keep giving it, you're creating that vacuum that by very nature is going to get filled. So if you keep hoarding on, you're not allowing yourself to almost, give yourself space to come up with something fresh and new. And this industry, it is about constant evolution. It's about constantly bringing fresh new ideas to the table. So therefore, just keep giving it away. And by doing that, you're going to keep filling yourself up with new ideas, and you're going to keep looking for the new thing to do, and you're going to keep moving forward. So yeah, give it away.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm really into it.
I remember the expression, information wants to be free. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
I think
I haven't, but
yeah, that comes from a conversation between Stuart Brand and Steve Wozniak at the first Hackers Conference in 1984. Yeah.
Well, I am a huge advocate for the reason why I'm so passionate about the internet and I'm a voracious reader. Books, when I was growing up, books were everything to me. And I think the most interesting people are the people who read extensively.
Mm-hmm.
And the invention of the printing press, was like one of the singular greatest inventions in the history of mankind, because it opened up it took information out of the hands of the favored few that had the control over it, and it opened up that distribution on a more wider level. And then the internet came along, and it opened up. It was that the digital revolution opened up again information to the whole world, and it's the communication. I think why I love as well what I do so much is I'm constantly having conversations with people all day, chatting. I've got friends in every countries all around the world, so I'm chatting to people all around the world on a constant basis. But you've got all that information at your fingertips. I'm pretty old now. I did my dissertation at art college. I had to actually go to a physical library in London, get on a train, go to a library and speak to people to gather information. Whereas now it would take me probably a couple of hours to do that online. We are spoilt for choice of what we have at our fingertips. It is amazing. And being a part of that, feeding this information is what really drives me. Learning, communication are huge drivers for me. Why I think that combination of all that is why I love sort of SEO and content marketing so much. It's just a shame that you always, it kind of gets ruined. I mean, everybody says, don't they, SEOs, this is why we can't have nice things, because as soon as a technique comes out, SEOs, we just ruin it, and then it ruins the internet for everybody. Well, yeah, if you listen to The Verge, but anyway, that's a different story.
Yeah. Speaking of the thing about giving away your best stuff and information wants to be free, reminds me of a quote from Frank Kern, one of the O.G.s in internet marketing, talking about results in advance. So results in advance, the way he defined it, it was giving away your best stuff. Like, let's say you have an online course, you teach how to play the guitar, for example. You give away for free how to play the F chord, which is challenging, and somebody feels stuck in playing the guitar in the early parts of their learning process. They're probably struggling with the F chord. You give them that result in advance of conquering that particular issue, and then you offer the course. And by giving away your best stuff for free, giving away those results in advance, people are more inclined to sign up with your program to pay for your course. And they will associate the value that they received for free as well as what they paid for with their investment, not just the stuff they paid for. So even though you gave away your best stuff for free, they're going to kind of lump that in mentally into what they got for that investment of whatever dollars they spent with you.
Yeah, I think people really respond to generosity, and I think generosity goes a long way, and people really recognize that. And yeah, I'm a big believer in building thought leadership content and giving us away as much as you can. It's interesting, actually. I think you probably find that people, even if you give it all away, they will still end up buying something, even if you're almost just replicating what you've given away for free. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just like that trade. It's that the basic human driver of reciprocation, where I give you something. I think that was probably in Cialdini's Influence book, wasn't it? Where I think they did an experiment where they were giving flowers away for free. Yeah, great book.
Yes, I've had him on the podcast. He's amazing.
Oh yes, you have, haven't you? You've spoken to some really incredible people. Actually, I'm quite jealous of your roster, Stephan. Yeah.
Well, aim higher, you'll do better.
I need to up my game.
Great adage that I learned in like 1995. I went to a Karis seminar on negotiating, and that really stuck with me. Aim higher, you'll do better. So if there's somebody that is just like a dream for you to interview, put that person on your list. Visualize that that's already done. I learned this in Kabbalah class, that if you have the desire for something, the fulfillment has already happened.
Oh, yes. I am a big visualizer. I know this is a bit random, but yes, I use a lot of visualization in everything I do, and it does really work 100%. If you're focused, and you plan and focus and visualize it, yeah, it really does. I mean, you have to put the work in. You don't just sit there and go, "Oh, I visualize £1,000,000 and it's just going to fall on you." You got to do your part.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing how it works. Actually, it's almost like magic, really.
It is.
Right?
It is. We live in a magical universe. Everything is energy. Matter is just energy slowed way down. So if thoughts can turn into things, which they can, it makes total sense, because thoughts are energy, things are energy. You're just changing one form for another.
I think the moment that I really started planning and using spreadsheets quite aggressively to plan my life, it did really change everything for me. And I've achieved more in the last 5 years. I mean, 10 years, but especially in the last 5 years, I'm really focused planning. It's incredible, actually. And yeah, I also like to reach out. What you're saying about with the guests, reaching for a higher level. When I started out a long time ago, it seemed almost impossible to achieve. I actually remember going to my very first Brighton SEO when I was trying to break into the industry, and I went to the conference on my own. I didn't know anybody in the industry, and I was literally stood in the corner of the room, terrified, thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to break into this? And I was looking at the people speaking on stage, and all the names, thinking, oh my God, how do you get there? And, I put myself out there. I worked hard, and within a few years, all those people are my friends, in my network. And, then I became the person on stage talking. And then, yeah, you just keep pushing, don't you? Taking it to a higher and higher level of reaching out.
Yeah.
And until really there probably is nowhere else to go.
Well, speaking of putting yourself out there, you said by your own admission that you're shy and that you have imposter syndrome. So how do you overcome that, to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable, being comfortable being uncomfortable, getting on stages and talking to powerful people and all that? How do you conquer those feelings?
I have a fridge magnet that says life happens outside of your comfort zone. And I am a big believer in striving to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I lived my life for a really long time within my comfort zone of, not wanting to push myself. And then I recognized and realized there's no doubt about it. I'm a very driven person. And I realized that to achieve everything that I wanted to do, I was going to have to start pushing myself and pushing myself hard. And actually, those feelings, of being scared, nervous, afraid, anxiety, they're never going to go away. So you just have to learn to sit with them and operate anyway. When I first started doing the Pioneers, the first few interviews, yeah, it was terrifying. And I still sometimes, get a few butterflies. Before I came to do this show, I get a little bit of anxiety. I find speaking on stage very, very, very challenging. It's much easier speaking online. But yeah, with people actually in front of me, I find it really difficult. But you just have to become comfortable with it. And there is no other way but pushing yourself. It's amazing what you can achieve actually by becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
I've been having a lot of problems with sleep the last few years, and being able to still operate and function when you're so sleep deprived, that's a real skill, Otherwise, you're not going to do anything, are you? But if you want to do anything in life, you've just got to throw yourself off that cliff. I started a side business a few years ago, and it was terrifying. I literally used to wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing at 3 a.m. But I just threw myself off a cliff. I planned it. I looked at it. I thought, well, yeah, the numbers work. I can see the strategy. I've got a backup plan. It all seems to work. So it was, I guess, what Warren Buffett calls a calculated risk. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you're still got to stand on that cliff edge. And even if it is a calculated risk, you've just got to throw yourself off. Yeah. And it is, it's absolutely terrifying. But there is no other way. Just got to do it.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of the quote, "Leap and the net will appear."
Yes. And then I'm trying to think, there's another quote where as you take the first step, the path builds in front of you. So it's like you're walking in the dark on the path and you have no idea how it's going to open up. But the more you plan and prepare and the more you take the steps, the ground comes up to meet you as you just keep walking. So I guess it's just, you just keep walking every day, don't you?
Yep.
You just keep pushing yourself to go forward and just trying to be better than you were yesterday. And if you can keep doing that every single day, then you can't. If that's not good enough, then it's not good enough. But I think, what's interesting as well, with all the pioneers I spoke to, a lot of them have imposter syndrome. That's really interesting. And I think the more that you start to speak to people that are really high level, that you would consider very high level people at the top of the industry, they're all just normal people, like we are. And I'm sure it's the same with really celebrities. I love Tim Ferriss. I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan, and he's managed to interview some impressive people. Yeah. I love his interviews with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is incredible. He's got a great mentality and confidence. That guy, I don't think that guy has self-esteem or imposter syndrome. I don't think he has self-esteem issues, but he's got that amazing drive and work ethic where he works hard for something. But at the end of the day, these people, they're just all normal people. And I think the more you get out there and the more you put yourself forward, the more you recognize and realize everybody has the same anxieties as you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I had imposter syndrome
nobody's
too.
Unapproachable.
I wrote a whole article for the Huffington Post about it. And then Psychology Today found out about that article because it did pretty well and invited me to participate in an article they were writing for Psychology Today. And then I said yes. And then they were going to have me be on the cover. And I got scared. They're going to have a whole photo shoot and all that. And my wife was like, "You're going to be the poster boy for imposter syndrome. Are you sure you want to do that?" And then I pulled out.
When was this, Stephan? When was this?
I don't know. It was like 10 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, maybe 8 years ago. That's funny.
It's how ironic, isn't it? You pulled out of the of being the poster boy for imposter syndrome because you were nervous.
Yeah. I didn't want to be kind of labeled or pigeonholed in this idea of being an imposter. Yeah, kind of funny. Everything is so perfect. Like this universe is just such a setup. It's a rigged game in our favor, of course, but it's a rigged game.
I think the more that you, I think also the more that you understand something and the more you experience something, the more your imposter syndrome actually grows. Because in that early days, you have the mentality of, you have that confidence of the new starter confidence of, oh yes, of course I can do this. I can do anything. I'm brilliant at this. And then I look back now at the work that I was doing when I started out SEO and I was like, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. It's awful. But at the time, you've got that confidence. Whereas now I feel like I know less now than I did at the beginning, just purely because I know more now. And the more you do know, it's just such a complicated, vast. You realize you're never going to know everything. The older you get, the realize you're never going to know everything, right?
Yeah.
And you just have to be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, and feel the fear and do it anyways, to quote Susan Jeffers, right?
Yeah.
So
I remember reading that 20, 25, 30 years ago. Yeah.
So it's
So how did you overcome your imposter syndrome, Stephan? What did you do?
what I did is rather than try to face it head on and address it, I just kind of let go and let God. And I had a couple of spiritual awakenings that really changed everything for me. And so I don't identify as my ego anymore. And so I'm not so bent out of shape if things happen that would, uh, hurt my ego. It's like, okay, this is all part of what is meant to be my story. That's fine. This is a lesson. This is an opportunity. This comes from God. And so you're less focused on looking good and not looking bad if you get a glimpse of the bigger picture. Some people will have an ayahuasca journey or some other plant medicine or something. Or I didn't have anything induced that way. I just prayed in the middle of the night one night, prayed for a job, which sounds weird. I talk about this more in my other podcast, on my personal development podcast, Get Yourself Optimized. But I was shown the matrix. I was shown this whole illusion that we live. It's all illusion. Yeah, it's all illusion. That changes how you relate to concepts like imposter syndrome. Like, hey, we're all, as Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah, yes, I do relate to what you're saying. I understand as well the being able to detach once you understand, when you really know what an awareness is, and when you can actually get into that place of awareness and recognize that you can detach from the madness of reality of everything that's going on. Yeah, but I still haven't managed to overcome the challenge of the very physical, like the anxieties of everyday life. It's, I still, do you still get like anxiety and nervous about things with your imposture, or are you just very
Not so much.
calm
I
now
mean,
about everything?
I was never or rarely nervous on stage, but I got nervous in front of TV. I haven't had any recent TV appearances, but I did like 13 or something like that. And after enough kind of stress inoculation appearances, I got kind of immune to it. But if I were to get on TV now, I'd probably feel some butterflies. But getting on stages, yeah, that doesn't affect me. But it's like it's we're all works in progress. It's not that I've figured it all out. I'm just having to remind myself every moment that I'm walking in two worlds simultaneously. I'm walking in this world, and then the more real world is the one that where we're walking each other home to. So as long as you keep reminding yourself, you're less invested in a particular outcome or attached in a particular way to something happening or some thing, and you are better at letting go and letting God.
What is it about TV that makes you so nervous?
I guess it was the idea of being on without a chance to. Well, I guess speaking on stage, you don't get a chance to edit after the fact either. But I don't know. I just having an audience of many people uh, sitting in their living rooms, and I don't know how many could be, thousands, hundreds of thousands. I had no idea. That intimidated me. I guess now that I'm speaking about this, that seems kind of silly from where I'm at now. I don't, yeah, maybe I wouldn't be nervous on TV if I were to do it again. I will be on TV again, and it's just a matter of when. Will I be nervous? Will I have butterflies? I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to speak it into existence and say I probably will. I'll have positive expectancy that I won't. That I'll just be natural and in the flow. I don't know.
Oh, you seem a very natural person. You're very at ease, being able to talk.
Oh, thank you, and you
So,
as well.
yeah.
And so I know we're getting up to time here. Do you have any last kind of nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listener or viewer, something that maybe we haven't already spoken about?
Yeah, I guess that this has been marketing orientated. I feel like we've we've talked quite widely about other things. Um, I think for me, marketing is as well. You know, as I've touched on before, it's all about putting the user um, front and center of everything you do. I think that often gets missed in SEO to a degree. I think we've become so focused on other metrics, but I also really like the idea of building an audience and building a community as well. I think that works really well. I think it can actually work on almost any level. It's interesting that, I mean, SEJ, since last year, I rebuilt their contributor program. So I was brought in new talent to contribute for us, and, you know, managed the list of contributors it had, so that I built a really great, diverse range of writers covering all topics, and, you know, some really great talent in the industry, and, you know, new talent. And I think that, and also with what I've done with Pioneers, you know, it might be a really small subscriber count that I have on Pioneers. So it might, on the face of it, seem not necessarily successful at this point. But actually, in my community, I don't think there's anybody that I speak to that hasn't seen one of the Pioneers, and especially people that I put on a really high level that I deeply respect, that I look up to. And it always amazes me when I talk to people and they go, "Oh yeah, we saw one of your Pioneers." I'm like, "Oh gosh, that's incredible." I also that I've been looking a lot at content, sort of where content's developing, and looking at lots of different forms of content online recently. And what's interesting, I'm finding, is that there's a lot of small, like, for example, like in the UK, there's lots of small local businesses starting to really leverage Instagram and doing it really, really well. Like, say, for example, your average tradesperson, like a builder, who you would never imagine them to be particularly creative, but they're putting together these, you know, great like hyperlapse videos, or some of them managing to leverage doing some fantastic like how-to videos, and they're building up a really strong community in their sphere of influence. So whereas once upon a time I would have thought, you know, community building is only for big brands, actually I think it is for anybody at any level can achieve that. And I think developing your I know that term personal brand is a bit of a funny term, but I think actually really focusing on brand is becoming more and more important, and I think it's only going to become more important as we move forward, particularly with all the disruption that we're seeing in SEO at the moment, with the integration of AI and SGE, etc. Nobody really knows how this is really going to play out, and for me, I think it's in these times of real flux, go back to the basics and go back to what's really important. And I think if you can focus on what's really important, then you're always going to be in a really strong position, no matter what is changing around you. And therefore, those things are focusing on your user, building your audience. So you've got a direct relationship with your audience, and building a community around yourself. And if you can build a community in a way that you're not dependent and reliant necessarily on one third party provider, such as, you know, like Facebook. I mean, hey, you know, people built communities on Facebook and they suddenly had it switched off overnight. Try to leverage your reach across many channels, and then you're not dependent, or you've not got one single source of failure, and particularly try and get your email list if you can. That's the most important thing. I think building your brand, your direct relationship, cultivating your brand to have that relationship with people directly, I think that translates to any area. I think it's the same in entertainment industry. I think it's the same in, you know, local tradespeople, big businesses, sports teams, any level in the world. It's all about connecting with your user and building your brand around that. And I think really investing now I'm quite interested at the moment in looking at more social media community building as well. Whereas been working, I've been really invested in SEO content strategy for the last several years. That's been my real focus. And with everything that's changing at the moment, I think that potentially, looking at having communities on social as well is going to be more important for everybody, rather than just depending on, we're not going to be able to rely on search result pages in their current form. And particularly I see that search is going to get divided across AI assistants integrated into phones. That's going to really change how people search. So you've got to find ways to reach your audience in new ways. And I think if you can connect with them, particularly on social, then that's going to be stronger. It's a robust way to sustain your brand and business, rather than being so dependent on a medium and a channel that you have no control of it. Google and SEO on Google has been incredible, and it's been amazing for the last 25 years. But even how great Google is, at any time a site can get a penalty or get removed, or something can happen that wipes it out. And everybody has seen this happen. I think, probably everybody has had a client, or everybody has been in a situation where they've had a site that has just tanked overnight and it's gone, it's burnt, it's not coming back. Their income's been switched off. So to build a brand around that is very unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about, SEO is now classic marketing. SEO is not just really SEO. It is marketing. And I think to be a really good SEO, you have to look across all channels, and you have to really think like a classic marketer as well. And I think if you actually go back and read, I used to read a lot of the classic direct marketers, Schwab, Hopkins, etc. Some of the classic early books from the early 1900s. What were they, written in like something 1920? A lot of the fundamentals of what they said, what they wrote about then, and direct marketing translate perfectly into email marketing. And then you look at how that then progressed to media advertising, radio advertising, that then translated to TV advertising, that then translates to video advertising. It's the same kind of medium cycles, just in new channels.
Yeah.
So I think my real advice in anything is, we're in real flux right now. Go to the fundamentals and really, really double down on your classic marketing and brand building.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite classic book from, let's say, the 1920s that you want to recommend?
Claude Hopkins. Is it My Life in Scientific Advertising? I can't remember the exact title. I have to say, though, my all-time favorite hero has to be Ogilvy. I know he's become really popular now, and I'm also almost disappointed in a way, because he felt like he was my secret when I discovered him a long time ago. I love Ogilvy, and I love his whole mentality and philosophy. And particularly, I think why I connected with Ogilvy is, before Ogilvy became a marketer, and in his own words, he said how he built his agency so quickly, because he didn't get into advertising until I think he was in his 40s or late 30s. And he said that, I was late to the game. I was hungry. So I had to make it work, and I had to make it work fast. But before he did that, he did a lot of random different things. He was like selling augers from door to door, which is a real challenge. And all those random different things that he did really helped feed him as a marketer. And it was interesting that, from my background, I've done a lot of diverse, different, interesting things. And I think all of those, I started out in print advertising, print design. I've done print design, illustration, web design, classic marketing, editing magazines, offline, public offline magazines, and also being a designer and a creative, but also somebody who's got writing skills, and then also somebody who's really passionate about business. Bringing all those together, a diverse cross section, I think really helps me to look at things from a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
To bring a different approach to how I work and operate.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure some listener is going to say, this really connects with me. I want to hire Shelly. So hopefully that person is going to write an email to you right now. So the two books that you recommended from Claude Hopkins is My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising. So those are two different titles. And then David Ogilvy has this great book. He has multiple books, but Ogilvy on Advertising is a classic as well. And I'll throw in one of my favorite old-timey books, and that is The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn, which is not per se an advertising or marketing book, but it's really about how to play the game of life, how to work with this matrix reality and actually manifest what you desire and bring it into existence, thoughts into things.
Actually, Stephan, there's just one other really small book. I was just Googling who the author is. This is an amazing little book, and I'm sure probably a lot of people know it, but it's called A Technique for Producing Ideas by James Webb Young. It's a really small book. You can probably read it in one evening. And that, I think, was written in something like the 1930s. It's an absolute classic for brainstorming and for thinking. I used to do a lot of writing about creativity and thinking techniques, and that is a real gem of a book.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to check that out too. A Technique for Producing Ideas by James Webb Young. Got it. All right. Well, we'll include all these resources in the show notes for this episode, as well as, of course, the links to Shelley's work, her SEO Pioneers series, and her website for hiring her and working with her and getting an amazing result, I'm sure. Can you just share your main website address for our listener?
Yes, well, I've got two websites. I've got my personal one, shelleywalsh.com. There is actually an article on there, which is a list of the top 10 books on creativity. And there's some really interesting books. If you want to know more books about creativity and thinking skills, check that out. So that's shelleywalsh.com. And my business site is shellshockuk.com. And then the channel that I'm most proud of is SEO Pioneers, and that's on YouTube, and it's YouTube at Shelley Walsh, Shelley, not the Americanized spelling version. So check out SEO Pioneers, because every single episode on there is an absolute nugget and a gem of information from every single person. And I've learned more from speaking to these people in the last 2 years than I have in the past 15, 20 years. It's been incredible. Cannot recommend that enough. Not because of me, but purely because these guys have really got some interesting things. Guys and girls have got some very interesting things to say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all the work that you do in the world, Shelley, to reveal light and help make the world a better place. And thank you, listener, for your efforts to make the world a better place too. And we'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.